Man, oh man, what is up everybody? Thank you all for tuning in to another video here on the Simply Car Things YouTube channel. And boy, what a crazy last 48 hours it has been. Enthusiasts everywhere have been literally lighting up in flames over reactions to the new G8X BMW M3 and M4 competition models. And there's just so much to take in. It's like, man, this is just absolutely insane. You know, it is a very controversial time to be a BMW enthusiast. With all that being said, I'm gonna be delving into my overall thoughts on the G8X, M3, and M4, and I also want to talk about a few things that a lot of people I notice seem to be just sort of glossing over or not necessarily talking about. And I want to kind of highlight some of these points and clarify some of what BMW's intentions are with these cars. Now first, obviously, you know, the elephant in the room here is that front end. It's extremely polarizing. It is extremely in your face. It is very, very bold. And the one thing that I gotta say, and I said this about the G22 4 Series, if you saw that video, I commend BMW for what they did specifically because they're taking risks here. Traditionally, BMW styling has been very conservative. It has been much more evolutionary rather than revolutionary. They kind of, with the M3, always stuck to a very basic formula in terms of exterior design, and it definitely worked. Don't get me wrong, beautiful cars. But with the G8X, they've definitely taken a very, very bold move. Now, have they pulled it off in terms of the overall design of the vehicle? Well, that's questionable. In my personal opinion, I don't really like the design. Just not a fan of that front end. Just the overall proportions and the dimensions, and just from most of the angles, the car, it's not terrible looking, but it just doesn't do it for me. In my honest opinion, BMW exterior design peaked with the F8X generation, with the F8X M3 and M4. In my honest opinion, like I said, there will be absolutely no way I'll be able to look at the G8X generation and genuinely say with full certainty that this generation looks better than the former, or the current is what I should say, because technically the G8X still isn't out yet. I want to dive into a few points that a lot of people seem to somewhat be missing. Now, with the M3, and obviously it's very drastic design changes and quite a number of, you know, performance and hardware changes have been implemented into this generation of BMW. I think the M3 is no longer what we see the M3 as, if that makes sense. Traditionally, we always saw the M3 as a raw two-door driver-focused sports car that had amazing handling, very linear power, and just a number of factors that made the driving experience so incredibly pleasurable. Now, not to say that this isn't true with the current M3, but I think the M2 has sort of manifested itself into the M3. The BMW M2, the F87, and the G87 M2 now are going to basically be what the M3 was. And what I mean by that is they are going to be rear-wheel drive only, offered with a manual transmission, and I know the current M3 is going to be offered in a manual as well, but it's going to have the right proportioning. It's not going to feel too big, it's not going to feel too stubby either, and hopefully, fingers crossed, with this new generation of M2, the curb weight is going to be significantly less. Now, we started to see this effect sort of take into place in the mid-life cycle impulse with the F87 M2. When the M2 competition was introduced, that was a big move by BMW because they're essentially taking in the drivetrain and powertrain components from the M3 and the M4 and putting them into the M2 and making it the ultimate track weapon, which is true in most cases. And not to say that the M3 and the M4 are not capable on a track, they very much so are, but in terms of just the overall more driver-focused car, that's definitely going to have to be the M2, specifically because of its proportioning and the fact that it's sized more closer to like what an E46 3 Series once was. And that's going to take me into a few of my negative points about the G8X, M3, and M4. Now, with the G87 M2 coming out, I think that car will fully take over what the M3 originally used to be, and the M3 is going to just be a very high-powered, good-handling sedan with very bold and, you know, crazy in-your-face looks, which is cool. I think a lot of people are going to like that, and I think, to be honest, the car is going to sell pretty well, especially as the looks start to grow on more people. Will they grow on me? I don't know about that. You know, I like more of the traditional styling that BMW had, and the new direction they're taking is just very questionable in my opinion. But that actually brings me into some of my negative points about this car that I don't specifically like. For one, they're dumping the dual clutch transmission. Now, the DCT gearbox is absolutely fantastic in the M cars. It's fast, it's responsive, it's smooth, you can daily drive with it, you can drive on the track with it, and it will always get you in the right gear. But most importantly, it offers a wonderful level of engagement that somewhat resembles the feel of a manual transmission. Every time you upshift, it kicks you in your seat really hard, especially if you have the DCT in its most aggressive setting. Downshifts just feel really crisp. The engine rev matches and revs up really fast, you know, on every single downshift. And you just get this feeling of like rawness and power from the gearbox, and it's really, really nice. In fact, it's so good that in many instances, you know, it's turned manual diehard fanboys into DCT lovers after they got behind the wheel of one. They really say, like, once you get behind the DCT, you almost kind of forget about the manual. For some people, not all. Now, what they're replacing it with is the ZF 8-speed automatic transmission, which is a fantastic gearbox as well. It is very, very quick. It gives you the downshifts, it gives you the upshifts, it's arguably smoother around town, it may even provide better fuel economy with the gearing and the way that it's able to variably change the ratios and all that kind of crazy complex stuff. But I have a feeling it's not going to feel nearly as engaging as what was found in the F8X and even the E92 platform with those DCTs. The DCT is amazing. In terms of overall performance and rawness, the DCT, I would say overall is superior. Just by design, a dual clutch transmission is always going to just have that edge in terms of shift speeds. And I really wish BMW just poured money into the R&D for the development of a next generation DCT, something that could compete with Porsche's PDK or something. Not to say that the 8-speed is not fast, but it's just the idea of a dual clutch to me sounds much more appealing in the new M cars. Next up, these cars are heavy. When we're looking at the curb weights of these cars, BMW, the official weight numbers of the curb weight, okay, just the curb weight of a competition model M3 rear wheel drive with a 6-speed manual transmission comes in right around at 3,850 or 3,860 pounds. That is heavy, guys. When we're talking about the F80 in its most heaviest form with competition package and DCT and all that, that car weighed like 3,620, 3,640, maybe, you know, depending on the options and whatnot. So the G8X already in its most standard form has already gained well over 200 pounds in curb weight. And then you factor in the weight of yourself as a driver and maybe a passenger. A base stripper spec M3 comp is going to be over 4,000 pounds all day long. That's a significant amount of weight. And the thing is, BMW has always historically prided itself in being the lightest in its class. When you looked at the C63S AMG, you looked at the Audi RS5, and then you looked at the M's, the M was significantly lighter. Now, not so much. And then with the addition of xDrive, which is pretty cool, you know, that they're offering that to customers. And for those that like to drag race and whatnot, that's going to be great. But I have a feeling xDrive models are going to be over 4,100 pounds, you know, if not maybe a tad bit less. I don't know. When you think about an M car, when you think about an M3 and M4, you just think about, you know, such good handling, such a sporty and engaging drive. I just can't see that exactly happening to its fullest with a curb weight that is that significant. Now, maybe I'll be wrong, you know, when I get a chance to get behind the wheel of one, maybe my opinion will change, but from what I'm seeing on paper, it's concerning to me. The M4 specifically was also lengthened by nearly 6 inches. I love the F82, I'm an F82 owner as well. And the thing is, in my honest opinion, the F82 was like as long as it needed to be. Like the car is already decently long as it is. It did not need to be any longer. The wheelbase did not need to be extended whatsoever on that car. The G82, they're adding like 5.5 inches or so in terms of length, and it just makes the car look so like awkwardly lengthy, and I just don't like that. I think the M4 is not terrible looking overall. I mean, it definitely has a lot of like 8 Series DNA in the design, which I kind of think is cool. It gives it like somewhat of an exotic Grand Touring look. But when I think of M4, like that's not what I want personally as an enthusiast. That's just not what I'm interested in as well. And just overall, a lot of these you know, things with the design and the curb weight and dumping the DCT is just, I don't know, man. It just concerns me. And I know these cars are going to be fast. I know they're probably still going to be really track capable, but I have a feeling they're going to just lose that raw, like super savage edge that the F8X platform had. And I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of all over the place with my thoughts, honestly, on this car. In terms of things that I love the interior. I think it's a massive step up from the F8X platform, and the technology and all the standard features and those carbon fiber bucket seats where you can finally, you know, loop harnesses through them is amazing. Like, that's so awesome. Thank you, BMW, for doing that, because, you know, now you don't even have to get aftermarket seats. You can get those beautiful carbon fiber buckets, and they look really, really functional as well. I also do like how distinct now the M cars are from their standard 3 and 4 series counterparts. I think that's a very nice touch. I think it's a nice addition, you know, that they're really taking that next level to differentiate the M cars, which I think is something that lacked a little bit in the current gen of the F8X. You know, overall, the G8X, I really feel split in terms of how I feel about it. Sometimes I look at it and I'm like, that doesn't look so bad, you know? And then sometimes I'm like, dear God, that looks absolutely terrible. And I think this car is really going to come down to like how you spec it out. You know, if you get one that's like all blacked out with like competition wheels, lowered carbon accents, bucket seats, I think, you know, there's a lot of potential in the look. The new Isle of Man green, gorgeous color, I'm a big fan. But then if you get something like that highlighter Sao Paulo yellow with like standard aluminum wheels or something, that does not sound like a good image in my head. So, you know, I'm kind of torn quite a bit on the car, but again, you know, my concerns really just come down to the fact that overall, the curb weight is a little bit too high for my liking. The automatic transmission is something that saddens me a little bit, that they're dumping the DCT. The proportioning of just the entire body just looks kind of off to me. And again, you know, I would like to mention to a lot of people that I think the M2 this generation is really going to be that M3 replacement for a lot of enthusiasts. So if you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, be sure to subscribe as well down below. I'm sorry, I know I was kind of like all over the place on this video. There's just such an overwhelming amount of information to take in. But with all that being said, stay tuned, guys. I'm still on the hunt for an M4, so keep you guys updated as soon as I find something, but I will catch you all in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.